So I just gave a word to apostles and prophets from the Lord. And here's a word to the sons and daughters of the great King. And you've heard it many times. All right. That in the last days, God would pour out his spirit on all flesh. You know, that your sons and daughters would prophesy. Your old men would dream dreams. Your young men see visions. All this is gift and grace of God. Okay. And I just told you that God has told me to look at the church. And to my amazement, utter astoundment, because I've been outside the church for 16 years. I went away to Arabia like Paul, you know, years and years of study and revelation. It's just what God's dealt with me, just me and him, you know. And to my utter astonishment, as I began to look, and he told me to look, and he commissioned me to do it, God is pouring out his spirit. Little children, okay? Great things are about to happen with the children. I recounted to you the Melchizedek story in my book. How when he was born, you know, he came out the womb, you know, and the badge of the priesthood on his chest, and he blessed the Lord. He starts talking, you know. He's like a 3-year-old boy. He's already, 3 years old. He can talk. He's got the senses. Stand up, clean himself off from the blood, and starts blessing the Lord. And he was around for another 997 years until the Israelites went into the promised land. There was a 40-year overlap between the change in the law and the priesthood, right? Just like there was for the Levitical and Jesus, because Jesus comes in that order. So there was the Melchizedek and there was the Aaron for 40 years as they wandered the desert. And then at the end of the 40 years, that was 997 years from Melchizedek, and he was born 3 years. That's 1,000 years. And Jesus comes in that order, and he did. He reigns 1,000 years for the order of the established. He reigns 1,000 years because of the decree of his Father concerning the order of Melchizedek that he came in. And then he brings his own glory in. Okay, and time's up. 2030, that's it. That's 2,000 years since he ascended into heaven. And that's it. Time's up. What do you think this whole 2030 is about? Satan knows. All right. But it's a great deception for mankind. I mean, it just is. Let me get back to what I was talking about with the children. I believe little babies are going to be born, and they're going to do like Melchizedek did. And they're going to speak right out of the womb and bless the name of the Lord. Bless God, bless Jesus. They'll probably tell you Jesus is coming soon. Now, lots of other things. God is going to use them in the churches, out in the streets. His glory is going to be on the children because such is the kingdom of heaven. And I know that every child under the age of 15 is raptured up and taken from us off the earth. If they're 2 weeks of age, 1 week of age, one week is 7 years. That's not the age of accountability, 7 years old. 3 weeks of years is 21. You're past the age of accountability, buddy, I don't want to put up my middle finger. That the second week. Yeah, I was going to say the second week. Look, 14 complete years. If you're under 15 years old, whenever that moment happens, and that moment's not going to happen, the Lord is not going to come because he told me it was from throne to throne, okay? The reign. From the throne of the Father being destroyed in Jerusalem, it was 24 days until the entire city burnt to the ground. And the saints get the kingdom. At that point, the last day, God gave the kingdom to his son. And Jesus begins to have his own children now. Those who came in the days of Jesus, they were friends of the bridegroom. You understand? They were raised up on the last day, just like Who was it? Martha or Mary said, I know it'll be raised on the last day. Well, last day you think the women we're talking about? Our last day? I don't think so. Look, you see all these dreams and visions from these children, and they've been to heaven. And all this did not exist until Jesus got the kingdom. But Jesus does have the kingdom, and it does exist. And when your spirit leaves your body, it's taken to Jerusalem, and it's there. Your spirit receives a new body, and you're born again. You know, you're in the womb of your mother. Your spirit is once again coming into and getting a new body. That's what it means to be born again. You know, it's the reality of the situation. You know, by faith, we're born again here on earth, but we have to walk out that faith. Look, the gates to the city, man, they're never closed day or night. You know, but it don't hold them. People can walk out the gates and walk away from God. You know, essentially that's what they do. They're giving up their inheritance. That's their inheritance, the city of God. That's the land that Abraham saw. That's the covenant God gave to Abraham. The promises don't come by the law. That was given 430 years after God said to Abraham, to your offspring, who is Jesus, I will give this land. And that land was the land of Israel. Okay, that Abraham looked out on. But Abraham saw the new Jerusalem. Paul tells you this. Read the scriptures. That's the land he saw. That's the land of inheritance. Now, God still gave it to Abraham's offsprings. You know, I mean, he's gracious. There's the spiritual aspect of scriptures and then, you know, the human aspect. And God is spirit, and he fulfills both sides. It's what he does. It's what a God does, you know. You have to think of it both ways because he fulfills it both ways. Let your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. What do you think Jesus said that for? You know? So I'm amazed at what God's doing. He's pouring out his spirit on all these people. And you see the little children, man. They're having the dream or vision. One I even heard, you know, he's like, I don't know how old he was, maybe 6 or 7 or something, and maybe a little younger. But he went outside and God gave him an open vision, and, you know, and he comes inside, he tells this story, you know, wow, mommy, I saw the rapture. I saw you go up and me, you know, and, you know, he's running in. So God gave him an open vision. He said, there was angel, and they blew this loud trumpet, you know, and then we all went up, you know, but God's blown the trumpet and raised the dead, you know. Yeah, the marriage has occurred. You're not bastard children born out of wedlock, you know. So they were friends of the bridegroom, but we're still partakers in the first resurrection, the resurrection of life. When you die, your spirit goes so that you could live with the Father. It's the reason Jesus had to die, so you could live with his Father. And he went away to, you know, prepare all that, you know, and God had prepared it from the foundation of the world, but he still had to offer his blood, you know, and wait for his Father to give him the kingdom. He knew that generation wouldn't pass away. It was a prophecy about his birth, you know. The Ephraim would cease to be a people, you know. Look, hey, that played out perfectly. That's how Jesus knew this generation wouldn't pass away. One way he knew. All right, because he knew the scriptures. He knew they wouldn't. He knew he would receive the kingdom. And hey, the seventh trumpet was blown, the dead were raised. And now, get Christ the first fruits. Then it is coming when he receives the kingdom from his Father. The dead are raised. Then comes the end, and that's where we're at. Okay? When every rule and power of authority and Satan goes under his feet because he's got to rule and reign until then. And this is why Satan has to come out and be released, which he was on March 5th, 2003. So we're at the end here, folks, and God is at the door. I mean, we're so close. When you see, so okay, go back to this, God told me throne to throne. When you see the Vatican destroyed, I know that I saw it. Real quickly after that, the visions were back to back. And hey, I was on top of a hill. And that hill is my spiritual life. And that's where we all need to be, on top of the hill. That's where they used to offer sacrifices to God, on top of the mountain, you know, getting close to God. Moses had to go up the mountain. Moses died on the mountain, and we need to die to ourself, our flesh, our lives on the mountain. It's from throne to throne. When the saints' thrones destroyed, the Lord comes and saves us. It's not too long after that. It was 24 days from the time the Father's throne was destroyed until Jerusalem was in flames. Do you think it'll be much more longer than that when the throne of the saints are destroyed? The glory of God already departed the Vatican. It came to my house the exact moment the Pope abdicated the throne. I read later that night exactly what time this article was published. He changed Christianity, and he published it and he put it out. 9:30 in the morning my time, 3:30 in the afternoon there in Rome. And at the very moment, I'm in the shower singing, "This is the day the Lord has made. I'll rejoice and be glad in it." And the Shekinah glory filled my house. The children are going to do some great stuff. And God's pouring out His Spirit. Look, the rapture. I never believed in the rapture because I understood the fulfillment of the mystery of God. I mean, I understood it, but I didn't understand it fully as I should have, right? So God laid the foundation, taught me, He showed me all the, but then He just lays another layer on top, and He reveals things at the right time, just in the right way. But of course, hey, He sent from on high. He took me. He drew me out of many waters. Psalm 18. Then what's it? Psalm 7. Let the nations of the peoples encompass you, and for this cause do you return on high. The Lord comes down in the cloud, just like He went up in the cloud, like the angel said. He went up after He dealt with sin on the cross. He ascended into heaven, and He comes down. Listen, here's a mystery. All right, I didn't mean to go into all this. Sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent. All right, I'll be done after this mystery here. So the world was destroyed the first time by a flood, by water. And by water, Noah was saved. Baptism corresponds to this. We're saved, baptism, right? So that was the water. That's the first time. The second time the earth is destroyed is by fire. And we are made alive by the fire of the Holy Ghost. The baptism of the Holy Ghost is what we're baptized by fire. So we're saved by water, we're saved by fire. But the only thing that really means that anything, that corresponding effect is what? The Spirit of God is who saves. If you don't have the Spirit of Jesus Christ dwelling within you, you're not saved, and you'll be consumed by the fire. I've seen it, So this destruction's coming. I seen it. I descended from heaven and destroyed them. I was there. I did it. I watched them. So, anyways, I think that's about it. Sorry I went off on a tangent. I want you to know God's pouring His Spirit out upon the sons and daughters, the children. And they're all saying the same thing, but from different perspectives. It's like 360-degree perspective here, and they got one little fraction of the percent here they're viewing it from. God give another perspective from here, and another perspective from, and another perspective, and another perspective, so that His people and the world, it's like a puzzle, put it together, God reveals to His people what He's going to do before He does it. He does that all the time, and He has through the world, through time. It's just what He does, But we need to die to self. We need to die on top of the mountain, If you're not on top of the mountain when the Lord comes, that means really you're not expecting Him. And when Moses went up to the mountain, he was expecting to meet with God. And, hey, that's where we need to be. And Moses died on the mountain. Are you going to die on the mountain? I mean, die to self? Because that's the only place you can die to self is on top of the mountain. That's it. That's where you die, on top of the mountain, man. Hey, and from there you live your life, you just perfect yourself in love. And it's the greatest of all. Then you can look down when you're perfected in love, not arrogantly, conceitedly, you know, uh, yelling at people because you think you're Mr. Hotshot Apostle. Did the apostles at the bottom did they act arrogantly and conceited? Did they yell at their staff and act in an ungodly way and then say, "Oh, yeah, I can do that because it's just the office God gave me"? Yeah, well, God didn't give you an office. The gift and the callings are irrevocable, all right? But because they come from God. But lots of people don't fulfill their calling. Moses didn't fulfill his calling, all right? He didn't go into the promised land. He was supposed to, but he disobeyed God in one thing. He didn't treat God as holy. And he struck the rock instead of speaking to it. He was disobedient. And they died in the wilderness because of their unbelief and their disobedience. And Moses, hey, thank God he died on the mountaintop, you know. There was a point I was going to make about. See, I just go off on tangents. I'm not a good speaker. But hey, yeah, that's probably it. I'll let you go. God bless you, guys. Be perfected in love.